welcome to George on Sports. I am your host, George, and today I am here with Benny Bonsu. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me today. For those who don't know, Benny is an award-winning global sports broadcaster and producer. Worked with a number of different organizations from Sky to BBC to BT Sport, Matchroom Sport, named top 100 most influential African woman by OK Africa, and also nominated for Sportswoman of the Year by the Battens Award, and is now the director of daily content at the Olympics. So Benny, welcome to the show, and how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm great. When you talk about the things I've done, I'm just like, I'm tired. I'm really tired.
You've done a lot.
I'm knackered.
You have done a lot, and I will be coming to some of those things shortly, but I want to take it all the way back to start. Sport it plays a big part in your life. Clearly, it's the industry that you work in now. What was your first introduction into sport, and when did you realize that you actually wanted to work within the industry?
Oh my God. I started sports at the age of 12. I went to St. Thomas More Catholic School in Wood Green, North London. At that time, it was the school, if you like sports, is the school to go to, because it literally felt like we did maths, English, and science, and then PE. That's what we did. So my introduction into sports was very, very young. I was an athlete when I was younger, but my first introduction into working in sports, I would say, probably at the age of 18 when I went to university and got myself involved with university radio, and kind of just developed the interest for it. But my first job into it was, realizing how much I loved basketball. And my brother signed with Dallas Mavericks when I was still at university. So at that time, basketball in the UK wasn't a thing. We had, BBL, London Towers. I used to go all the way down to Crystal Palace to watch it. But it wasn't, NBA wasn't everywhere. At that time, British basketball was actually much popular than NBA. So we had our Midnight Madness, the BBL, that kind of stuff. But I had an interest in NBA because of my brother. But then, the NBA market was oversaturated. Everybody's talking about it, but how could I make myself stand out? And I think from that age, I decided to, let me start featuring African players. And I think from the age of 18 all the way up to about 5 years ago, that was all I was interested in. So I had exposure to it very young. At 18 years old, I started already, blogging, vlogging, writing about it, talking about it, bothering anybody that would listen about it, about NBA basketball, especially the African players.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, without a doubt. I mean, you've gone on to work for some amazing organisations. I mentioned some earlier, so we say BBC, Sky Sports, Give Me Sport, which is something of more recent. Do you feel like these organisations that you worked for helped to propel you for the next step, to take that next step into the role that you're potentially in now?
For sure, because when I started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. All I knew is that I wanted to talk about sports stories. I wanted to talk about incredible athletes that are in the end, are in sports. I wanted to talk about Serge's journey into the NBA. I wanted to talk about, Bismack Biyombo, my own brother's journey, Luau Deng's journey. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was doing it, and that was the important part. I was doing it, I was making the mistakes, and I was learning. And along the way, you meet people that kind of indirectly become mentors, and for me, at the time, Michelle Roberts, who was the players executive director for the Players Association, she was the first Black woman I've seen with so much power in sports. So I thought, my God, who's this woman? Who took me under her wings, and kind of like, nope, don't do this, do this. Nope, I wouldn't advise that. So, I really, when I look back at my journey, like at 18, 19, I don't know what I was doing, but I did it. And it kind of helped me, along the way. Now I'm at the IOC, and there's nothing I haven't seen, been through, heard, that I haven't been through my journey. So now everything seems much easier, even though it should be the hardest of my time in my career. It feels much easier based on the fact that the journey I took on very young, up till now. Some people now still think, they'll look at me like, she must be really old. And I'm like, you don't know. I started this really young, so I'm still young. But because I've done it for so long, people think I'm a vet
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this arena. But you know what, George, I'm so grateful for the fact that at 18, when people were raving, great that they did, I wasn't doing that. I was learning my craft, and I was making the mistakes I needed to make at 18, 19, 20. So in my 20s, that was the hard work. In my 30s, it's a breeze, you know?
Yeah, well established, well established. Um, so something that really stands up for me is your time with Give Me Sport, first female sports editor in the United Kingdom. Now that, you know, it holds a lot of weight. So I imagine that's something that you're obviously proud of, and definitely, you know, you put out there when you continue your role now at the IOC. Something to be proud of, without a doubt.
It's a bit mad, right? Like to think about it as the first female sports editor in the UK, and you're thinking about it, and you're just like, UK, you look at the media that we have, like we have some of the world's best media outlets based in the UK, and it's huge. And then you think about it, and you're just like, the first female sports editor was in what, 2018, 2019? That's crazy. But then to be the first and also be a woman and then be a Black woman is is even like even nuts. But you know, it's something I am proud of. I'm proud of it, but also not proud of it because I feel like somebody should have done it before me. But I'm proud of it because I say this all the time, that as a woman, you already have kind of all these pressure of just being the first, right? And then as a Black woman, people are looking at you like, what are you gonna do? You know, what are you gonna bring to the table? Forgetting that you've been on this journey for so long, you know, and to be at this point, I'm not there because of my skin color. I'm not there because I'm a woman. I'm there because of how good I am at my job, you know, and it feels like a double-edged sword, that you're proud, but also you're fighting the whole entire time just to be where you are, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I understand, like you say, it is a bit of a shock to think, how is it only recently just been the case that we've had a few, you know, in that position? It shouldn't be the case, given all the talent that we do have. I want to come to the home nation that is Africa. So I mentioned at the start of the show, you have a huge connection. Your brother, other basketball players. I know you was out in China with Dwayne Wade, being the face of Li Ning brand, and you know you were putting on the show for African athletes. So a guy called OC Umaniro, you may know of in the NFL, who
I may know
I
him.
know, yeah, you probably do. Um, I've met him a couple of times and I spoke to the guy. We have a mutual connection through the sport that is American football. Now, something that he's done is he has set up an academy. We call the Uprise. He's called the Uprise Academy out in Lagos, where he has basically gives undiscovered athletes, a chance. And we recently had the NFL combine. I believe you also were at the NFL games as well, where he brought over a few guys who I actually was lucky enough to interview. And one of the things that OC mentioned was the world is soon going to see all the undiscovered talent, all the things that they're missing from the continent of Africa. Now, you obviously a huge ambassador for Africa, and we'd have it no other way. Would you agree to that? Would you say there's, you know, there is a lot coming and a lot that still hasn't yet to touch the surface?
Man, George, I've been talking about Africa forever. You know, I started talking about Africa at 16, and no one paid attention. And then when I
Mm,
started telling the Africa story, nobody paid attention. And then you fast forward 15 years later, MBAs in Africa. You know, they're doing games in Africa. They're setting up leagues in Africa. They're investing in Africa. And I'll tell you a story about the NFL. So, you know, I fell in love with the NFL a couple of years back because my partner at the time also played in the NFL. And we recently, or last summer, we went to Kigali for the inaugural game of the BAL. They were launching the BAL for the first time, you know, the Basketball Africa League. And we bumped into OC. And it was like, yo, what are you doing here? This is basketball. And he's like, I came to see what you guys are doing with the basketball in Africa. And I'm like, okay, take a seat. So we sat him down and we were explaining to the journey how we built up MB Africa with Amadou Galofao 15 years ago when we started the journey, and how we could do that for NFL Africa. And he looked at me like I was speaking Greek. And I was like, look at NFL, look at the amount of Africans we have in there. Like, you have over 100 NFL Nigerian players. Just Nigerian players in the NFL is over 100 players. That's
yeah,
nuts, right? And then Ghanaians, I know we don't have a lot of us, but you know, there's some of us there.
they
Then you
are.
look at the other Africans, we have Africans in the NFL. So it's time NFL looked at setting up NFL Africa. And I was there with OC, my brother Benson, who works for Twitter Sports, and then Kevin from Afro Ballers. So
Yes.
OC is looking at me like, so you think this is possible? And I said, what do you mean do I think this is possible? Well, you're not here seeing NBA Africa. So anyway, we talked about it, and we came back, and a couple of months later, we launched NFL Africa. Now we have NFL Africa. Now, for anybody to think that we don't have talent in Africa, they must be drunk, because you look at all the sports around the world, whether it's NFL, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's NBA, you take out the African talent, what do you have? It's not as interesting. All of a sudden, it's not as interesting as it should be, right? So you look at the NFL and you look at the talent that we do have, then you look at the reason why OC would want to set up the Uprise in Africa. He's been there, he's traveled, then you have players like Ziggy Ansah, who's been doing it for the last 5 years, goes back and does camps. Not just them, there's so many NFL players that are doing things themselves back home, simply because we have raw talent, right? It's not like talent that we have to go and then now prepare and then, no, we have raw talent that needs the opportunity to show the world what it can do. Now you have those player pathways. You have the academy in London. Some of the young players from come for the combine. Now you look at the NFL. Give it 5-6 years from now, most of the talent or direct talent are going to come from Africa and directly into the league, because the talent is there, right? But also the exposure of the game of NFL. Not every African country knows about the NFL or the sport of American football. Now imagine if we could educate Africa, 53 countries in Africa, about NFL. Let's see the amount of talent we will get. Masai Ujiri from Toronto Raptors, a very good friend of mine, used to say, Benny, look, you could go anywhere in Africa. You go to Sudan, you go to Kenya. There are giants just walking around that have never even touched a basketball. And he ain't lying. It's facts. The same thing with NFL, NFL players for the future. Go to Nigeria or Ghana and look at the amount of wedge men just walking around the streets that have never touched an American football. True. And you're telling me there's no talent?
Yeah.
Are you drunk? Like, are you serious? So for us, myself, OC, and the NFL Africa team, we're extremely excited with what he's doing on the grassroots level, what people like Ziggy and the Romeo and Julian, the brothers from the Detroit Lions, and all the players, what they're trying to do in Africa, because the talent is there. They just need to be exposed to the sport and given the opportunity to show what they've got.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, really. And when NFL Africa popped up, my ears what's this? And the first thing I thought was, why has this not been a thing before? Why has it only, like you mentioned, why has it only happened now? Given the ratio of African heritage players in the entire NFL, you even mentioned the brothers from the Detroit Lions. I don't know why, but like you say, it's the right thing that it's around, and it's here to stay without a doubt. Travel. You've obviously, your job carries you all around the world. You've been to China and back. You're currently based in Madrid. What is that like, being away from home for, obviously long periods at a time? There must be highs and lows, I would imagine.
Mad. Like I've never been in my house for more than a month.
Wow.
And it's been like that since the age of 18, when I was starting university. I've been traveling around the world. Yes, I go to China every summer with D-Wade to do the tour and be the face of Li-Ning and really expose the China market to basketball. But also I've been around the world, not just China. There isn't a lot of places I haven't been to. It is hard. It's not a joke. It's fun. And I'm forever blessed and grateful for the opportunities I get to travel with sports. But you miss home, right? So my mom, I don't get to see as much as I want to see, my sisters, my brothers, and I know they're all excited with what I do. And, all of us work in sports. So we all travel, but it is hard. It is really hard if you think of it. Like, the Olympics is coming up. We have the Winter Games coming up in Beijing. So we go to Beijing for the next, from January to Feb, we're in Beijing. So it's a great opportunity. I'm grateful. I'm appreciative. I love my job. And I love the traveling and going and learn about different cultures, different people, and exposing people to sport. But there's nothing easy about it, because you're on a flight, 11-hour flights, sometimes 24-hour flights, and you see the airports more than you see your house, So it's not easy, but it has to be done if we want to really grow sports, because sports is so important. It's so important for the world. And if that takes me away from home, then that's what my calling is. Then I need to be
Yeah.
away from home.
And it is not in vain in by any means necessary. So, I mean, it's because I think people when they see people progressing like yourself, and you're doing amazingly. The other side of that, like you say, is the comforts. And I guess if you put yourself outside of that box and you take the next step, then there is no say to how far you can climb up that ladder.
Yeah.
So on that segue, inspiration. Is there anyone that you look to for inspiration? Anyone that inspires you to continuously do more?
I think I always look to my mom, because I think of all the opportunities they didn't have, when they came to England. And I'm sure my mom's had dreams of traveling around the world and never had the opportunity to do it. There was a point where my mom was working 4 jobs just to make sure we got to do whatever we wanted to do. Um, and she's had 4 brain hemorrhages,
Wow.
hip replacement, an elbow, so shoulder surgery.
Mm,
And she was still, working. She worked in the NHS for 30 years.
wow.
And it's an inspiration to me, because if she could do all of that, there is no reason why I can't do all the things I'm doing. But also I look at people like Michelle Roberts as an inspiration, because Michelle Roberts is one of the first Black women to be leading a union, like the NBPA, which is the National Basketball Players Association. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest in the world,
Yeah.
being a Black woman that has led that for many years, and you look at what the players have now, the kind of opportunities they have, how much they earn, the stuff she's had to go through to fight for equal rights for those players. Like, I hold her in such high regards, So,
Hmm.
she inspires me, but also my siblings inspire me. My brothers inspire me with all the ambitions and what they do. So I kind of try and take inspiration from people around me. With what I do, I don't have ridiculous amount of people around me. I only have a small amount of people around me, but the small amount of people I have around me are people that are very impactful, people that know, have passion for what they do, and people that I can learn from. So I try, if you're in my circle, I try and take as much inspiration from you as possible to really make me a better leader, but also a better person in what I do day in and day out.
Wow. I mean, it's inspirational, the conversation alone, let alone all the gems that you're providing here too. So highlights of your career. Is there any one particular moment you could say has been a highlight for you?
I would say, first one, becoming the first, sports editor in the UK. That's like ridiculous. No one would have envisioned it. No one would have guessed I would have ever
Yeah.
got there. So that is great for me. And I guess for me as well, getting the job at the IOC. Come on, that's a bit mad, Like, pandemic hits, media in the UK tried to like cut you, give you less pay, try to like basically just not give you the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then you go and apply for something that in your head, you're like, I'm never gonna get this. And after 10 interviews, you get this top job,
Wow.
like ridiculous. And it was so weird, George, because I couldn't talk about it for like a month or two. Like I had to
Yeah.
be, and it wasn't because the IOC didn't want me to talk about it. It was me. I was just like, let me be quiet about this for now, because the way people, they did me wrong. Let
Yes.
me keep it quiet and then come out. And then, literally, I think it was maybe a week or two before I left London to move to Madrid is when I announced it, and people were like, oh, it can't be true. Like, I'm actually gonna get that job.
Wow.
Then when they saw me here, they were like, oh, she really did that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm really proud of that, because even with that, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't share it. I literally went through that whole journey on my own. So I'm really proud of that. And I guess I'm also proud of the fact that we're able to put on 2 amazing Olympics in the pandemic. And it's something that it's really needed, because in such dark times, you just need
Yeah.
like a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And it's just, yeah, I'm proud of the fact that we have an amazing group of people that we work with day in, day out, that are committed to this, that love sports, that want to use sports to change people's lives. And yeah, those are the things that I look back and I'm like, yeah, this is great.
So leading off the back of that, your role at the IOC, which I cannot say enough about how amazing it is. So again, congratulations. What does that entail? So director of daily content, what does that job entail? A few things that it entails.
Oh my God. So everything you can see with your eyes far with the Olympic logo on us content, I'm responsible for that. So that means the social platforms, making sure that the content that goes across the social platforms top notch, making sure the content that goes on the .com, the Olympics.com is top notch, but also looking at the Olympic channel where we produce all the movies, the documentaries, the shows, the short form content, the long form content, basically everything that's content at the
Wow.
Olympics, social and news, I'm responsible for.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's amazing. That's quite frankly, that's what it is. It's amazing, like a whole Olympics, you know. So I mean, if we look forward now, we mentioned we've got the Beijing Winter Olympics, and then we have Paris 2024, where, if I'm not correct, the opening ceremony on water is the first of its kind.
It's the first of its kind. It's mad.
Wow.
It's mad, and it's going to be amazing. Like I always say that every Olympics is amazing, but every country that hosts it has its uniqueness, and Paris will have its uniqueness. But the good thing about Paris, we hope, is that it will be the first huge event post-pandemic. Fingers crossed. If everybody
Yeah.
gets vaccinated, everybody stays safe, it will be the first major event. And I guess for us in Europe, well, UK, we're not part of Europe anymore, but we could
Oh
just,
yeah.
go across and enjoy. But, it's so exciting that opening ceremony on water, like what, like
Uh,
imagine the content that's going to come out of that. Like, I'm
I
so
know.
excited ahead, how that looks like, how we're going to create content around it, how we report it during games time, the kind of stories we're going to be telling. Because with Paris, they're very keen also in kind of the Francophone countries. So the African countries that speak French, what they're doing, like bringing all of that together is just what the world is going to need at that time.
Wow. And on the topic of Olympics again, in the Beijing Olympics, I understand we've added some new events. So a couple of them, we have the female bobsled, and
Yeah.
also the mixed freestyle skiing. So there's a lot of things to come, a lot in the pipeline, a lot of content, a lot of work, and a lot of things to be proud for, without a doubt. It sounds that way for sure. So, I mean, yeah, when I saw the news about, firstly, you being announcing a new role, and then I'm seeing all the things about the developments in Paris, first of its kind, then I'm hearing we're adding new sports. It just sounds like it's a very exciting time, especially because, we're in a pandemic, and hopefully we will be out of it. So just a massive congratulations to you. Everything that you're doing, I think you may or may not know it, but you inspire so many people as well. Like obviously, we met some years ago now at an American football event, and being able to interview you here, just it just goes to show how far you are climbing up that ladder. So thank you very much for coming on the
Yeah.
show. Massively appreciate you taking out the time out to speak to me today. Just for people watching, a reminder: if you want to keep track on all the Olympic content, Olympics on all on all the social platforms, and everything you see is headed up by Benny here, who's enjoying her new role. So thank you again for tuning in. I hope people have enjoyed the show, and thank you for speaking to me again tonight, Benny.
No, thank you for having me on. You say new, but I've been here almost a year and a half now, so it feels like I'm. But no, thank you for having me on. Thank you for asking the questions, but also most importantly, sharing it with your audiences as well. Like sporting is no joke, but it really does inspire and change people's lives when taken seriously. So I appreciate this, and well done on your podcast too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.